here at Radio Row, Starcade Media, with our buddy Rich Gannon, from Kansas City. Because Rich, believe it or not, we live in a time where the Chiefs have won a Super Bowl. We went to 2 straight, but yet we still yearn for those days of the '90s with you, with Marty Schottenheimer, those great defenses. You just did a Raiders show. Now you're here in Kansas City. I mean, you just cover all bases, man.
I try, brother. Listen, I love football, and I've been blessed to play with some great players and great coaches. It's fun to come to Super Bowls and to see your former teammates. Bill Romanowski, who was a great player for the Broncos, he came over and played for us in Kansas City. You see the current players, you see the former players. I still love the Chiefs. I had some great years with Kansas City. It's sad to see Marty Schottenheimer pass, but I'm still friendly with so many of those guys. Marcus Allen, Dave Zott, Tim Grunhart, John Hall. You mentioned Vanell Bennett, Kim Landers. I mean, Tony Gonzalez. I mean, forget the great players. These were great men and great teammates. And Marty created an environment that was just conducive to winning, to competing, and to just being great teammates. So we had some special teams in Kansas City.
You mentioned Marty. He recently passed last year around this time. And what were your remembrances of Marty as a coach? We talked to several former players. He's very detail-oriented. Just what do you remember and love about Marty as your head coach?
I think he was certainly one of the best coaches I've ever played for. He was a great communicator. I think Marty was very disciplined. I think he created a culture and environment that was conducive to playing at a very high level and winning. The expectations were certainly that. I will also say this about Marty. Marty could walk into any individual meeting room, quarterbacks, running backs, linebackers, defensive line, and install a game plan. He understood the offense, he understood the defense, he understood the kicking game, and he did a great job not only coaching players, he did a great job coaching coaches. I mean, we had a great staff there, but Marty, it was not unusual for Marty to walk over during a period and step in there and interrupt the coach and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. Clearly, everyone understood their role under Marty Schottenheimer.
Well, if it means anything, we've confronted both Marty and Carl separately about why not Rich Gannon in the 1997 playoffs, of course. But then they each blame each other, so I guess.
No, I don't know about that.
Well, okay.
You know what?
That is great.
Honestly, when you look back on your career, I played 17 seasons, and you look back on maybe things you regret. I don't personally. I wasn't even involved in the decision, but we were on a roll there.
Yeah,
guys. We were playing really well. And in fairness to Elvis Grbac, he wasn't ready to play. He had missed, I think, 7 games. He was rehabbing, I think, from a shoulder injury, and the conditioning was an issue. You just can't ride a bicycle or run sprints and expect to be in football
especially
shape.
On that last drive.
He ran out of gas. It wasn't just the last drive. He had to burn some timeouts. He couldn't get the play caught out of his mouth. And it's just unfortunate. I really felt like I gave us the best chance of winning. You look at that game and how our defense played against John Elway and Terrell Davis. We would have won that game, and we had a chance to win a Super Bowl. We had some really good football teams there. You think about what could have been. I think the only frustrating thing for me is I felt like I gave the Chiefs the best opportunity to win games, and unfortunately, for most of those 4 years, I had to sit and watch, and it wasn't until '99 I got the chance to go have a team and an organization that really believed in me and really handed me the keys to the car. I never really got that in Kansas City, and that was the one thing that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and you talk about that. How tough was that for you? They go with Steve Bono instead of you after Joe Montana leaves. They go with Elvis Grbac. They bring him in. You have that great run in '97 when he gets hurt. But how tough was that for you when a lot of players we've talked to, the Grunhards, the Anders, the Marcus Allen, say clearly if they would have pulled the locker room, it wasn't up to them. They didn't get a say in it. But if they would have pulled the locker room to a man, they think they all would have gone with you.
Yeah, I think I was a popular player because I put the work in. I can remember coming in on Tuesdays and spending 8 or 9 hours, and I would look for the starter, and he wouldn't be in the building. I thought to myself, this is bizarre. This is insane. But I was committed, and I did everything I could to put the team in a position to have a chance to win. I remember even the scout team. When I was not starting, and we had the scout team, I would go up against Gunther Cunningham and Neil Smith and Derek Thomas and James Hasty and Dale Carter and all these great players. it was my opportunity, it was my game day. And I'll tell you, I can remember Duncan Cunningham swearing at me. We going back and forth. We had a term. It was called the GNC in the scout team when I was in Kansas City. And we called it the Get Nice Crew. And we would go out there on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and it would be competitive. And I think that's one of the things that made us a really good football team.
Well, Rich, let's talk about the Chiefs currently. I want to know, it's hard to compartmentalize kind of what's happened here in Kansas City. Winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago, you're in 2 straight Super Bowls, 4 straight AFC Championship games. But is one Super Bowl for these 4 years enough to show, or is that enough? Are Chiefs fans getting enough out of this? Because I hate to sound greedy, but my goodness, 21-3 lead at halftime against the Cincinnati Bengals, 3 points scored in the second half. It was a meltdown. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
Where are we at here with the Chiefs going forward, man?
Well, look, every time out is a learning experience. Every season, you always look back and you look at. I'm sure Andy Reid's doing a couple things right now. I think that first and foremost, you do a personnel evaluation with your players. I think you do a staff evaluation with the coaching staff. You do a scheme evaluation with what you're doing offensively, defensively. Where can we get better? Where can we be more efficient? What are some things we can clean up in 2022? And I just think you look at the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago, losing one last year, losing in the playoff game. I mean, the expectations are so high because you have this nucleus of players with obviously Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. I think, how long can we keep this group together, and how long can we compete for championships? I still think the future is bright. I still think there's a benchmark there. I know how disappointing it is to lose at home in a playoff game like that, especially when you have an 18-4. I think what happened going into the halftime was an issue. I also think the fact that you come out in the second half, Tyreek Hill and get a catch. I think even Patrick Mahomes. Look, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, I think if you really look under the hood this season, you say you're honest with Patrick. You say, look, there's some areas where we can get better. He went through that stretch where he wasn't taking care of the football. You go and look at some of the plays, the negative plays in the playoff game against the Bengals. Sometimes the best play, the only play is to throw it away. He has a difficult time doing that because he's such a great player. Right. But I think there's areas of his game where he can get better, and I think he will get better. The guy is an amazing player. I'm just telling you. We cover the NFL all season long. I can't tell you how many coaches, how many general managers, how many fan bases say, well, if we only had Patrick Mahomes, you guys got him. He's not a good player. He's a great player. He's one of the best in the business, and you have to continue to build around him.
How big of a problem do you think it is that Andy Reid and they just kind of said, this is who Patrick Mahomes is when they drafted him. He's a gunslinger. He's going to run around. He's going to make plays. Doesn't have the best footwork, but we're just going to let Patrick be Patrick. And early on, that worked to great success, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, MVP, Super Bowl MVP. And then we saw the breakdown, what happened in Super Bowl 55. Didn't have the offensive line. Ran around, tried to make plays. This season we come in, we see the 2 deep shell, and they're having to kind of matriculate their way down the field and take the underneath and take what the defense has given you. And we've seen the footwork be a bigger issue as we go, especially that second half of that playoff game against the Bengals. How big of a problem is that going to be moving forward with this footwork? And can they go back and now we need to be fundamentally sound?
Well, there's a fine line. I agree with Andy. We've had these conversations in production meetings. You can't watch the guy run around and throw the ball across the field to Tyreek Hill for an 80-yard touchdown and then criticize it. And then at the same time, when he gets sacked, say, well, you should have thrown it away. I mean, you got to be careful you don't discourage the behavior because he is the best quarterback in all of professional football at creating and manufacturing offense. It's the unscripted plays. It's his ability to kind of break down a defense and scramble and make a guy miss and find the open receiver. You don't want to just – there's a fine line. And it gets back to trusting the protection, being disciplined with your footwork, going through your reads and progressions and not trying to every play schoolyard football. Look, I think you go back and we'll have a very extensive all-season program. When you get to quarterback school, I think the first thing you start with is the interception. Then you jump into the sack. And there's plenty that he can get cleaned up. He's a guy that – the great thing about Patrick Mahomes is he's willing to do the work. He's a guy that can take constructive criticism and feedback, and he's going to continue to get better as a young. It sounds funny to say as a young developing player, but that's what he is. Yeah. It just happens to be one of the best in the business, and he's still developing. He's still, I think, getting better at his craft.
Well, Rich, we can't thank you enough for stopping in with this man. Former sexiest NFL man, Rich
right.
Gannon.
Grbac took credit for it.
The award still hasn't made its way to Mr. Gannon's man cave yet. We're still waiting for that. From
Elvis, send that over.
Come on.
Guys, you do a great job. I love your work. And look, Chiefs Nation, it's coming. You've got a special team. You have a great owner. You've got a great general manager. You've got a great head coach. And you've got a great quarterback. You got a leg up on the competition. The Chiefs are in great hands.
Be patient. Who wins the Super Bowl, real quick?
You know what?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I would never count out the Bengals when you look at what they've been able to accomplish this year. But I think the Rams have the better offensive line. I think the Rams have the better pass rush. I think it'll be a close game. I think it comes down to a field goal, but I do like the Rams.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Rich. Enjoy the rest of the week, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
It's an absolute honor. Thank you.